Hey guys, my name's Hugo. I'm a vocal producer and mixing engineer, and today I'm going to show you my vocal chain. It's probably something you've seen before, but I'm going to give you a quick comparison between the way I do it with my plugins versus how you might do it if you're using Logic stock plugins. So that'll give you like a decent comparison to look at as well, and then a bit of secret sauce stuff at the end. And before I go into the track, the first thing I'll say is that this is a track done by a friend of mine, really awesome producer called Pink Boy. I'm going to put his stuff in the description below for you to have a look at, as well as the artists that sang on this track. However, because I don't have access to all of the vocals right now, the vocal stems, I've actually re-sung the vocal myself to give you the lead vocal so that you can hear that, all right? So if you think it sounds rubbish, that's because I'm singing and not him. So here we go. Let's have a quick listen. I'm going to show you this with no plugins on, and then we'll get into exactly what I do with the plugins.
Hey, don't try and fight. Don't try to fight the feeling that you came for. Oh, baby, wait. Let's do things we can't do on the dance floor. I could take you home tonight. Turn your back to paradise. Let our bodies magnetize. Bad behavior multiply.
Okay, that'll do with my horrible singing. And then just to give you an idea of the instrumental, I'm going to put that in as well so you can hear a bit of that.
Let our bodies magnetize. Bad behavior multiply. We could be a dirty little secret, you and I. We can lock the doors, turn off the phones, and hit the lights. Let's let our bodies do the talking, 'cause we're sure that ain't enough. Be a dirty little secret, you and I.
Okay, so it's a pretty cool song, I think, but this vocal needs a lot of work. So the first thing to say is I recorded this vocal through a Neve 1073 preamp. Not a real one, I don't have one of those, but I've got the equivalent Unison plugin that comes with my universal audio interface. So that's what I'm using for the recording in phase, and I'm doing that with a Neumann U87 AI as well. So that's all that I've got going on there. I'm using a bit of EQ on the Neve 1073, just a bit of boosting the high end, taking out some of the unnecessary low end, that kind of stuff. But the first thing that I do actually is I bring in a new Neve 1073 just to add a bit more to it. So the cool thing about this for me is that it adds a bit more character. I can really sort of push it the amount that I want. I'm very, very conservative when I use the 1073 during the recording phase because I don't want to bake in something that I can't take out. So I can add a bit more of it after the fact now. So I've boosted some of the 3000 area here, a bit of the 220 there as well, and just a bit of a high shelf as well. And let's hear that now as well. So this is with it on.
Hey, don't try and fight. Don't try to fight the feeling that you came for.
And now with it off.
Hey, don't try and fight. Don't try to fight the feeling that you came for.
So it's a small difference, but it's definitely a bit brighter, a bit more present. So then I go straight in with an 1176 compressor. And don't forget, guys, if you haven't got these plugins, I'm going to show you the equivalent with Logic stock plugins in a minute. So this is an 1176. I'm using it with a very fast attack, which is 7. 7 is fast, strangely, with this compressor. I'm doing it on quite an aggressive ratio. So let's have a quick listen to that. There's a part here that gets a bit out of control, but let's have a listen to that.
Hey, don't try and fight. Don't try to fight the feeling that you came for. Oh, baby, wait. Let's do things we can't do on the dance floor.
So what you can hear there is the idea of this is to get rid of the really, really loud stuff. So actually sometimes this compressor isn't doing anything, and that's because I'm just using it as a really aggressive, fast attack compressor to snip off any of those really, really aggressive spiky bits in the vocal, okay? The next compressor is what gets the smoothness. So that's the LA2A that I have afterwards. And so for the 1176, I'm trying to get no more than 3 decibels really, or maybe up to 5 decibels of compression. But with this one, I'm actually going very aggressive and I'm getting up to 10 decibels of compression with this. So let's have a listen to that now.
Hey, don't try and fight. Don't try to fight the feeling that you came for. Oh, baby, wait. Let's do things we can't do on the dance floor. I could take you home tonight, turn your back to paradise, let our bodies magnetize.
Okay, let's stop there, and I'm going to take both of the compressors off, and you can hear that again now with some of those very, very loud bits that are now a bit more under control.
I could take you home tonight, turn your back to paradise, let our bodies magnetize.
Okay, so you can hear those very, very loud, aggressive parts are now much more under control when I turn those compressors back on. And on top of that, when you play it with the music, which I'll do now, that vocal will now sit much better in the mix. So let's have a quick listen to that bit.
Let our bodies magnetize, bad behavior multiply.
And again, without the compressors.
Let our bodies magnetize, bad behavior multiply.
So you can hear there that there's some bits that are way too quiet, those sort of falsetto moments, way too quiet. And then that loud bit before that is kind of just pops out of nowhere. So it's really, really important to have compressors there. I really like that trick of using two compressors, using one fast one that does a bit less and is affecting just those really loud bits, and then a smoother one to come in behind it and sort of bring the whole vocal to a nice level and keep it under control with a slower attack, right? This is something I learned from a mixing engineer called Alex Scannell in Abbey Road. He actually uses sibilant plugins after he's done the compression. So he thinks really you should do very, very minor EQ work, or maybe even none, and compress everything first. Get the sound under control before you start to affect the tonal shifts of it. And also, in his case, he also thinks that you should use sibilants after the fact. And I never would have done that before, but actually it works really well. I'm not going to show you that. That's just a cool plugin. And yeah, it's got a look ahead feature, which is very nice. There are some equivalent kind of things, DSs, but they're not particularly good really in Logic compared to this. But there you go. This is a Waves plugin. Then this is another thing that I can't really find an alternative to on Logic. So unfortunately, this is really, for me, quite invaluable at times. I have to use it very sparingly, but let's have a quick listen to this. So this is Soothe. It basically can hear the different frequencies going on in a vocal or in any sound, and it will dynamically control those separately, right? So I've got it set to quite a small band here because in my voice, I've got some really annoying frequencies in the 4K area. This is something that you just got to have a listen to for whatever vocalist you're listening to. And if it makes sense to use these kind of plugins, if you have them, great. If not, some subtractive EQ will do just fine. Or maybe a dynamic EQ or a multiband compressor can also do the job. But this is a bit more surgical and leaves a lot more of the vocal intact. I'm not going to bother showing you those because nothing really changes there. This is the next step. So Pultec EQ is just boosting the high end. That's all I'm doing. I'm putting 8K with quite a wide bandwidth, and I'm boosting it quite aggressively. So let's have a listen to that with and without. So this is without.
I could take you home tonight, turn your back to paradise.
And now with.
I could take you home tonight, turn your back to paradise, let our bodies magnetize, bad behavior multiply. We could be a dirty little secret, you and I. We can lock the doors, turn off the phones, and hit the lights.
So when you add that in, it really gives that airy sort of sizzly sound, and it massively helps it stick out in the mix. I then use another Pultec, which has some more fine detail control. So I'm boosting the 200 a tiny bit. I'm taking a bit of a dip out of the 1000, and I'm boosting some more of the 4K. I'm taking a dip here because a lot of vocals tend to have a lot of mid-range, and removing some of that can just help clear it up, make it a bit less nasal in my case, because I've got quite a nasal quality to my voice. And yeah, then I'm just increasing the 4K just to give even more presence to the vocal. So let's have a quick listen to that, and then we'll move on. I want to get through this as quickly as possible. So let's have a listen to with and without the two Pultecs together.
Turn your back to paradise, let our bodies magnetize,
And off.
bad behavior multiply. We could be a dirty little secret, you and I.
And on.
We can lock the doors, turn off the phones, and hit the lights. Let's let our bodies do the talking, 'cause we're sure that ain't enough. Be a dirty little secret, you and I.
The final thing is I'm using an auto tune just to really tighten up some of those off notes here or there. It's a particularly dynamic vocal, this one. There are some, high end stuff. There's a bit of there's some falsetto, there's some chest voice, quite a lot of stuff going on. And actually using auto tune once you've controlled everything will actually make it easier for the auto tune to process the information. It's something I never really thought about, but I started to see that a lot of other mixing engineers are using auto tune towards the end, not always right at the end, but towards the end of a vocal chain. And it makes sense. You're removing all the stuff you don't want. There's no point giving the auto tune information that you're then going to get rid of later on anyway. So yeah, I tend to put it towards the end. So let's have a quick listen with that now. I'm using real-time advanced auto tune, and I've got it quite fast with a bit of flex tune on there and a bit of humanize just to make it not quite as robotic as it otherwise could be. Let's just skip straight into this bit here.
Turn your back to paradise. Let our bodies magnetize. Bad behavior multiply. We could be a dirty little secret, you and I. We can lock the doors, turn off the phones, and hit the lights. Let's let our bodies do the talking, 'cause we're sure that ain't enough. Be a dirty little secret, you and I.
Okay, so that is my vocal chain. There's a lot more to it in terms of we're going to have some sends and some other stuff in there, but I'm going to leave that until after I've spoken to you about the Logic equivalent. So we're now going to use the Logic plugins and try and get a similar sound. So instead of using the Neve 1073, we're just going to use a standard EQ. So I'm cutting out some of that low end, boosting the 200, boosting the 3240 in this case, which is sort of similar to what the Neve was doing, and a nice high shelf there. So I'm trying to copy what I was doing with the Neve. You're not going to get the sort of some of that harmonic flavor that the Neve has. Obviously, this is a parametric digital EQ, right? But at least it's sort of creating some of the same character. So let's have a quick listen to it on and off. Okay.
Hey, don't try and fight. Don't try to fight the feeling that you came for.
Okay, so let's have a listen with that on now.
Hey, don't try and fight. Don't try to fight the feeling that you came for.
So it's just a bit brighter, a bit more presence, just like with the Neve 1073. Then I'm going to copy the whole process that I did with the two compressors. And Logic actually happens to have two compressors, one compressor that tries to copy the Studio FET is the equivalent of the black-faced 1176. So we've got a Logic's version of it. I wouldn't say that it does a great job, but basically to get it working similar to that original plugin, what we need to do is put the attack to 0, and the release is almost 0 as well. It's at 5. It's the fastest attack and release that you can really put on it. The point being that we're just trying to get rid of those really aggressive sections, sort of, here you can see them here, those sort of spiky bits. We're trying to dull those down and then let the LA2A do the majority of the job with a slightly slower attack and release time. So I'm not going to play you that. I'll put both of them on. So the LA2A option is the vintage opto, and that I've got the settings there as the release at 61 and the attack at 10. That again mirrors roughly what the LA2A is doing in comparison. And then I've set the ratios and everything so that the amount of compression is roughly equal to that of the version that I was using before. So 3 to 5 decibels maximum on the 1176 or on the Studio FET, and then nearly 10 dB of compression with the LA2A. So let's have a quick listen to that. I'll put both of them on the screen so that you can see it, and you can also copy the settings if that's useful to you. Okay, let's have a quick listen.
Hey, don't try and fight. Don't try to fight the feeling that you came for. Oh, baby, wait. Let's do things we can't do on the dance floor. I could take you.
Okay, so let's turn them off and we'll have a quick listen to that area again that was quite aggressive. It was over here, so.
Let our bodies magnetize.
Let's hear that with the compression on.
Let our bodies magnetize. Bad beat.
So de-esser, this is the Logic de-esser. I've just set this so that it's doing a bit of work, bit of reduction on those S sounds. I've got it set for the male vocal at the frequency around 7K. Tends to work quite well, and I've got it on split at the moment, but you can do wide if necessary. And we're going to add this, which is a Pultec equivalent. So if I show you my Pultec here, it's the top section. So that section there is equivalent to that. And then my second Pultec, is the equivalent to the bottom section on the Logic equivalent, right? So it's a 1-for-1. However, it doesn't sound the same. You're not getting the same level of saturation going on. However, it's, I think, a good practice to use EQs like this. If you haven't quite got the money right now or can't justify spending money on these more expensive options, then using these Logic ones will do just fine. You can get a very, very long way with this, and that's what I'll show you here. So I've set up all of these to match those on the Pultec version. And then I'm just going to use pitch correction, which has had a bit of work done to it recently. This is the new Logic pitch correction plugin. And I've set it to D minor in this case for this particular song. So let's have a listen. The pitch correction, I'd say, is probably the most offensive part of the Logic equivalency to this, really, because it doesn't sound as good. But anyway, let's have a quick listen to that now.
Hey, don't try and fight. Don't try fight the feeling that you came for. Oh, baby, wait. Let's do things we can't do on the dance floor. I could take you home tonight. Turn your back to paradise. Let our bodies magnetize. Bad behavior multiply. We could be a dirty little secret, you and I. We can lock the doors, turn off the phones, and hit the lights.
Okay, so let's do a quick comparison now between the two. We'll do it with the instrumental off. So I'm going to do this section here, this end section. So we'll do the version that I did first. So let's have a listen to that.
We could be a dirty little secret, you and I. We can lock the doors, turn off the phones, and hit the lights. Let's let our bodies do the talking, 'cause we're sure that ain't enough. Be a dirty little secret, you and I.
Okay, and now this is the Logic equivalent.
We could be a dirty little secret, you and I. We can lock the doors, turn off the phones, and hit the lights. Let's let our bodies do the talking, 'cause we're sure that ain't enough. Be a dirty little secret, you and I.
Okay, so it's pretty close, right? I'd say the main difference that I'm hearing is that there is more harmonic content in the version with the paid plugins. That's to be expected. These plugins are designed to emulate the original hardware, and so you're going to get more of that. Logic stock plugins are getting better with this, but it's not really what you should be expecting. You shouldn't be expecting quite the same level of quality. But having said that, there are saturation plugins that you can also get for free in Logic that can help sort of bridge that gap. It might require a few extra plugins, but I think Logic plugins probably work with a bit more efficiency than outside plugins anyway, so you can probably afford to use a few more of them. So that is the first section. That's version 1, right? I'm now going to show you what I did. This is like a cooking show where I'm going to sort of show you what I did earlier, but I'm going to show you what I did earlier. Okay, so in this version, I've just done my standard routing procedure. I'm not doing the Browerize method, which if you're interested, please feel free to go and have a look in one of my previous videos on the Browerize method. But for this one, I'm using a slightly more simple setup. I say slightly, it's still quite an aggressive setup, but hopefully you get the idea. I'm going to add the instrumental in and you can just have a quick listen and then we'll talk through what I've done.
Don't try and fight, don't try and fight the feeling that you came for. Oh baby, wait. Let's do things we can't do on the dance floor. I could take you home tonight. Turn your back to paradise. Let our bodies magnetize. turn off the phones and hit the lights. Let's let our bodies do the talking, cause we're sure that ain't enough. Be a dirty little secret, you and I.
Okay, so that's still just one lead vocal, but it shows you what you can do with just a lead vocal in there. You can use a bit of automation, which is what I've done, and I'll show you all that now. So I've still got the stock equivalent version in here, just so that you can have a listen, but it's pretty much, this whole thing works just the same, but you're starting with the stock sound rather than the other sound, so I don't see the point in me using that. I might as well just use the nicer version, in my opinion. You can feel free to disagree. The first thing I've done is I've routed the vocal into this vocals area up here. So I'll bring that down here for now. If we go into our mix window, you can see that I've sent the lead vocal, which is this one here. I've sent this to output bus 2, which is, again, the vocals area that I've written just here. I've got a compressor. I'm actually using the Logic compressor here, and I'm using it as an upward compressor just to bring out a bit more of the aggression in those sort of quieter moments. So the sibilant sounds, the T's, P's, all of those kind of sounds, actually you kind of want to build them up. If you've controlled them properly before, you can now start to lift them without making them too nasty to listen to, and it really helps make the sound of the vocals pop through the mix even more. Okay, so that's quite a good little feature. I'm using that on 50% mix just because it can be a bit too much otherwise. On top of that, I'm then using Verve, which is a saturation plugin. There are quite a few examples of free saturation plugins, so I'll show you one of those quickly now. If you wanted to use a Logic version, where we go, distortion and chroma glow is a really good example of a new plugin that you can use for some tube distortion. It's got retro, magnetic, a few different options there that you can have a look at, and it's very good. I've used it before. I do recommend it. So that's a good option for using for free. Oh, by the way, there is also a new shortcut for removing plugins, which is to hold Command and then just click over a plugin and it will get rid of it on Logic. So that's a new update that's come out recently. I'm using a bit of saturation, a bit of compression, and then I'm just using sibilance again just to control a bit more of that. So let's have a quick listen to that with these off, first of all.
Hey, don't try and fight. Don't try fight the feeling that you came for.
So let's turn those off now, and you can hear it without.
Hey, don't try and fight. Don't try fight the feeling that you came for.
So it's a lot more aggressive when you hear it with those plugins on. We'll do that. We'll go to this section here as well.
We could be a dirty little secret, you and I. We can lock the doors, turn off the phones and hit the lights. Let's let our bodies do the talking, cause we're sure that ain't enough. Be a dirty little secret, you and I.
So when you play that with the music, you'll start to hear that those sounds really are quite necessary. They do sound quite over-exaggerated right now, but it's nice to have it in there. So the next thing I did is I sent those sounds off to these 3 buses, which are Sizzle, which I like very, very much. I'm just using Fresh Air, which is actually another free plugin that you can get from Slate Digital. This, I've got it set to do quite a lot. So let's just listen to the vocal just going through Sizzle now so you can hear what that sounds like.
Hey, don't try and fight. Don't try fight the feeling that you came for.
Okay, so that is clearly very, very aggressive, lots of high-end information. It's basically an exciter, right? So I've got that on there. There is a Logic exciter as well, so you can use that instead. So I'm layering that quite low in the mix. I've got that -10. I'm also doing parallel compression. If you want to know more about how I do this parallel compression, please check one of my previous videos. The Browerise method will show you exactly how I did this parallel compression, but I'm basically just using a Pultec either side of an 1176 in order to bias the high-end information before going into the compression and then reversing it afterwards so that it sounds kind of normal again, but it's been very, very highly compressed with a emphasis on those higher sibilant sounds. Okay, so I've layered that in quite loud, actually, only at -5, so it's quite loud. And then the final thing I've added is a width plugin, which is Real ADT. So let's have a quick listen to the width plugin on its own here.
Hey, don't try and fight. Don't try fight the feeling that you came for.
So that's obviously doing what it says on the tin. It's creating a lot of width. It's a really awesome plugin. Having listened to that now, would probably put a de-esser on there because some of those sounds I've heard them sort of popping out a bit on the right and left side of the speaker, and it's quite annoying actually. So I'd probably fix that in a real scenario, but this is just for practice, I guess. So let's have a quick listen to that now with all of those plugins on.
Hey, don't try and fight. Don't try to fight the feeling that you came for. Oh, baby, wait. Let's do things we can't do on the dance floor.
Okay, and now we're going to turn them off. So sizzle, power comp, and width off. Let's have a listen again.
Hey, don't try and fight. Don't try to fight the feeling that you came for. Oh, baby, wait. Let's do things we can't do on the dance floor.
And one time with them back on, but I'm also going to show you with the music not playing.
Hey, don't try and fight. Don't try to fight the feeling that you came for.
Okay, so that's definitely adding a lot more presence all of a sudden. You've got that. If you were thinking that it was quite dull before and the vocal needed some more presence, I prefer to do that on parallel sends, just like using the sizzle and the parallel compression, rather than doing it directly on the channel itself, because you've got a bit more control. You can really start to dial in exactly how much you want, and I think it's going to affect the actual raw vocal less by doing it that way, and you can maintain the original sound without making it sound too fake almost. But in this case, it does sound pretty fake, doesn't it? But it's quite a high processed track, so it's kind of what I was going for. So now that I've got all of those, what I then do, so sizzle, parallel comp, and width all there, I then have the vocal stack here being sent to bus 6, which is this sum of the vocals here. On there, I'm just compressing it with an API compressor. This is like a bus compressor. I'm then doing a few more tweaks to the EQ, just things that I noticed that I thought would sound a bit nicer. So I took a bit more out of the 1000 area, added a bit more presence, and that was it. That's all that I thought was needed there. And then here, this is something I'll show you in a bit, but basically this is a pumper. So in a real life scenario, when I've got all the other tracks available, I would actually sidechain the vocal to a kick in order to get the effect that I'm getting here. But this is a way of sort of faking it. And as long as your kick is actually just a 4 on the floor, you can get away with using this instead. It's a really cool Waves plugin, but I'm using that for a sort of wubbing, sort of in and out effect on the vocal to get out of the way of the kick in the chorus section. So I'll show you that in a minute. And then from there, I'm creating 2 sends for reverb and a slap delay here. The reason that I've sent them from the sum of the vocals rather than from this vocal area is because I wanted to send the parallel compression, the width, and the sizzle to the reverb and to the slap as well. So I wanted to make sure that I'd sort of glued all of that together first and then sent it to a new place, and then I add the reverb and delay there. So that's why I did it that way, rather than just putting the reverb and slap as the 4th and 5th bus on the vocals area here. So I've got 3, 4, 5. I could have done 6 and 7, but instead I wanted to glue it all together first and then do it that way. So you don't have to do it that way, but you're gonna get a bit more oomph, in my opinion, if you do it that way. So let's have a listen to that now. We've got a slap on there. It's a very fast slap, so I'll show you that. We've got H delay going on, quite a fast one, very, very low on the feedback, and I'm just using a high pass there, not a great deal, but let's have a quick listen to all of this now.
Hey, don't try and fight. Don't try to fight the feeling that you came for. Oh, baby, wait. Let's do things we can't do on the dance floor.
Okay, and then the last thing that I did is I added some automation. So I've got a reverb automation here, which is just adding a bit more reverb in a section that I think needed it. So we'll have a quick listen to that now.
I could take you home tonight, turn your back to paradise, let our bodies magnetize, bad behavior multiply. We could be a dirty little secret, you and I. We can lock the doors, turn off the phones, and hit the lights.
And as you can see, that's the pumper kicking in that I've got on another send here. So this is This is some automation just to bring the pumper in and out for the moments that I need it, and I thought it'd be quite cool to have it come in very briefly, then go away, and then back in again for the chorus. So that's that. And then what have I got here? I've also got the Studer right at the end of the chain in the full vocal bus sort of final area, right? And that is just adding a tiny bit more presence to the vocal. So we'll listen to that on and off quickly.
Hey, don't try and fight. Don't try and fight the feeling that you came for.
Very, very small thing. Let's turn it back on and let's try it now.
Hey, don't try and fight. Don't try and fight the feeling that you came for.
Okay, so it's starting to sound very aggressive now. So let's plug that back in with the instrumental and give that one last listen all the way through.
Hey, don't try and fight. Don't try and fight the feeling that you came for. Oh, baby, wait. Let's do things we can't do on the dance floor. I could take you home tonight. Turn your back to paradise. Let our bodies magnetize. Let behavior multiply. We could be a dirty little secret, you and I. We can lock the doors, turn off the phones and hit the lights. Let's let our bodies do the talking, cause we're sure that ain't enough. Be a dirty little secret, you and I.
Awesome. Okay, so the final thing I'll show you quickly is that the stock version sounds pretty similar. So I'll just drop you halfway through and we can have a quick listen to that.
Let our bodies magnetize. Let behavior multiply. We could be a dirty little secret, you and I. We can lock the doors, turn off the phones and hit the lights.
So it's pretty similar. There are some definite differences, but it's workable. And if you spend a bit more time, you can definitely get a very, very similar outcome. Okay. And the absolute final thing I'm going to show you is that the original vocals obviously have some harmonies, some other cool effects, and it doesn't have me singing. It's got somebody else who's much better than me. So let's have a quick listen to that now. And then if there's a request for a bit more of a deep dive into the workings of this particular vocal, then let me know. I'm more than happy to do that as well. So let's have a quick listen to that now and then we'll call it a day.
Hey, don't try and fight. Don't try to fight the feeling that you came for. Baby, wait. Let's do things we can't do on the dance floor. I could take you home tonight. Turn your back to paradise. Let our bodies magnetize. Bad behavior multiply. We can be a dirty little secret, you and I. We can let the doors turn off the phone and hit the lights. Let's let our bodies do the talking, cause wishing it ain't enough. Be a dirty little secret, you and I.
Okay, so let's have a quick listen to that with none of the plugins on and then we'll call it a day.
Hey, don't try and fight. Don't try to fight the feeling that you came for. Oh, baby, wait. Let's do things we can't do on the dance floor. I could take you home tonight. Turn your back to paradise. Let our bodies magnetize. Bad behavior multiply. We can be a dirty little secret, you and I. We can let the doors turn off the phone and hit the lights. Let's let our bodies do the talking, cause wishing it ain't enough. Be a dirty little secret, you and I.
Okay, so as you can see, there's clearly a lot more going on there. But to get you an idea of how a lead vocal is done, I think this is a pretty good start. And then you can add some harmonies, some cool effects. This is more about mixing. And then what you're hearing there at the bottom is more about a bit of production value as well. So it's you know, that's the culmination of quite a few different tracks coming together to produce something a bit more interesting. And if that's something that appeals to you guys, then let me know, and I can bring the original producer in for that, and we can discuss how that happened as well. So thank you very much for watching, and if you liked, please subscribe, leave some comments, let me know how much you hate me, how much you like me, whatever the case may be. And if you think there's anything that I could be doing better, worse, let me know, and I'll see you in the next video.